Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at the Nexus, a primeval cauldron of space-time itself, known as episode 556, where Time Lords generally aren't good at handling things, especially themselves. The Doctor's just the exception to the rule. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How's it going, guys?
How is everybody this week?
You weren't kidding. That was a long one.
Yeah, see, I told you.
That was the intro of intros there.
I feel like we need bigger music to precede that.
Something more grand.
Yeah.
Hopefully the music didn't just run out.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Peter out halfway through my open.
Somebody call Murray Gold. Get him on the horn. I understand he's not busy right now, right?
No. Not doing anything, is he?
He's really ramping up time now.
John Williams.
John's retired. We'll let him retire.
Well, let's see. He's got plenty of time to compose a theme for our podcast then.
Doesn't he
I think I'll reach out.
Out of retirement, though? Doesn't he keep coming out of retirement?
Yeah, because everybody,
like Jones?
Everybody has a project for him, so he comes out of retirement briefly.
That's not retirement.
Well, that's the height of retirement, when you can decide, all right, I'll do one more.
Yeah.
But just for you. I am retired, after all. You're going to have to pay me more. That's
It's just a ploy to get more money. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because John Williams needs more money.
Contact John Williams. TTV score. All right.
I'll get right on that.
I'll reach out to his people.
I'm looking forward to getting that from you.
Dear John.
No, not that kind of Dear John.
That's a very different Dear John.
May I call you Johnny?
Did you guys do anything?
Mr. Williams.
Did you guys do anything fun in this past week? I watched a movie.
What'd you watch?
I finally got around to seeing The Flash.
Oh, what did you think?
Well, it's the best worst movie I've seen. All
right.
I'm conflicted because I had a lot of fun watching it, but it has so many problems. There's jokes that don't land. It almost becomes a little too silly and doesn't take itself serious in the places where it should be taking itself serious, and then it takes itself too serious in other places where it shouldn't be. And so there's this real conundrum when it comes to watching it. But as a whole, and a lot of the things that they do in it would have probably been more exciting before Spider-Man No Way Home, but now it sort of feels like they've borrowed an idea. In a way, it's different, but in a way, it feels like they've borrowed an idea. Anyway, but when it comes down to it, I had a lot of fun watching it from beginning to end. So yes, it's not a great movie. It probably, I don't know that it deserves its status of bombing this summer, but it's a fun movie, and I did enjoy watching it. So that's two sides of it. I know that's a terrible review of a film, but that's how I felt. I really enjoyed watching it, but it is problematic in places.
You see that it was the biggest superhero bomb of all time.
Yeah, so far.
$200 million lost on The Flash.
I'm sure the Marvel...
Bigger bomb than Green Lantern.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Marvel and the Ant-Man crew are happy that they were followed up by that.
Sean, did you do anything?
Poor DC.
Well,
what did I do? I watched the new Venture Brothers movie, Radiant is the Blood of the Baboon Heart, and laughed hysterically for 90 minutes.
I'm hearing great things from that. Makes me want to go back and finish the series and then watch that.
Yeah, it's very much as a standalone movie, it fails miserably. You would not get anything out of it if you were not familiar with the characters or the show or everything. And it's very much kind of a truncated, this would have been season 8 had things gone differently. But as a kind of, final wrap up, it's pretty fantastic.
Well, I sort of fell off in season 4, and not for lack of quality of the show, because it was such a great show. I think that might have been the time where we cut the cord with cable, and so I didn't have it readily available. And then I think you had it on DVD, and at one time we talked about me borrowing it, I think, but I don't think I ever... Well, I didn't give you back the movies that I still had out, so...
You hit your...
I hit my quota.
Limit.
Yeah.
We may actually have to start assessing you some late fees on
Yeah.
it.
Well, you've got most back now. I think there's only 5 that I still have.
I'll have to check my records.
Yeah, you do that.
And then, sadly, the 21st came and went, and I did not get to experience Barbenheimer. I'm so devastated.
Oh, I'm kind of surprised.
Yeah, it became a matter of how do we find a babysitter for 5+ hours to knock out 2 of them, and it just wasn't happening. So we kind of have hopes that maybe this Tuesday.
Oh, so you haven't seen either of them since either?
I have not seen either of them.
Make it a double feature, huh?
Really trying to make it a double feature. I mean, I will see both of them in theater. That is for sure. I'd really just like to do a double feature. Although I understand,
do it in.
Well, the sadist in me says Barbie first and then Oppenheimer, so that it starts off happy and fine and then goes downhill. But I understand probably the proper way to do it is to do Oppenheimer first and then get some levity back into your life. Although I understand now there's a large group of people that are we can't wait and are clamoring for the digital releases of both so that they can start editing them together and actually create a Barbenheimer cut.
Well, all the reviews are talking about how incredibly powerful and heavy and deep the film is, and then there's Oppenheimer.
Yeah. I think one of the best comments I saw over the weekend was dropping the kids off at Oppenheimer so the adults can go enjoy Barbie. Just my luck, the big cultural event of the year, and I missed it. So I'm a little heartbroken.
Keith, what about you?
I've not watched anything. I've finished a book very recently called The House on the Cerulean Sea. Is that how you say that? The color Cerulean. It was fantastic. It was really good. By TJ. Oh, I just lost his last name. Same guy who wrote Under the Whispering Door, which I reviewed not that long ago.
I think I remember you mentioning that one, that it was good.
Yeah, and it was. This is very much the same tone. TJ Klune is the author, but this one is about. It's a magical world, but all the fantasy quote unquote creatures have to either be registered or the children wind up often in orphanages, and you follow along with an inspector for this company or this agency who goes and makes sure these orphanages are an okay standard and taking care of the children and everything, and he gets sent off on this very high, very classified mission, and it changes his life. It's so good. It's
sounds
predictable.
Like a great concept.
Yeah, it's very similar to. It's kind of. I would compare it to Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children meets Umbrella Academy. It's got some really good humor to it. It's got kind of the same kind of feel as Miss Peregrine because it's a bunch of children. And it's just, it's the tone he strikes between the comedy and the serious and the heartstrings that it's pulled. I mean, overall, you step back and look at it and it's predictable. You know what's going to happen by the end of it, but the ride is so enjoyable that you're okay with it.
Wow.
And you really get attached to all the characters because he adds just enough characters to make it interesting, but not too many that you're overwhelmed, and you can grow attachments to all the different children that he includes, and then the very few adults that are there, and this and Under the Whispering Door. I might have to actually get physical copies of so I can own them because I enjoyed them that much.
They all say, who is Doctor Who? This is Tim Trelaw.
This is David J. Howe.
I'm Peter Purvis.
I am Sadie Miller.
This is Lauren Cornelius.
Larry, it's Fraser.
For all things in the Doctor Who collecting world and beyond, the Doctor Who Collectors Podcast. I'm Larry Van Mersbergen, your host, and I've been collecting for 42 years. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex on the Direction Point Podcast Network.
I also listened to a couple of Big Finish audios, one of which I'm going to do as a something new 2-minute review. The other one I'm going to mention real quick, I did listen to The Lost Stories Return of the Cybermen, which was released a couple years ago. And it was good. I really liked it. It varies enough from the Revenge of the Cybermen that it's the trappings are familiar and a lot of the same plot points are very similar, but there's enough differences and they made enough changes from Gary Davis's script for Revenge that it is you get to a certain point and it's starkly different. And to some extent I need to go back and revisit Revenge now that I've listened to Return. I think I kind of like Return better. I don't know if that's how blasphemous that could be, but I think the story is just simpler. They don't try to add too much extra stuff in it. And listening to some bonus features, it sounds like that's part of what Philip Hinchcliffe had an issue with, was the fact that he thought the story was a little too simple. Yeah. And I think the story being simple works more in its favor than he gives it credit for. And the motivations behind the Cybermen, I don't know if it's the rewriting that was done for the Big Finish audio, but it's a lot clearer why they're doing what they're doing to Nerva and what their ultimate goal is with Nerva, more so than it is with Revenge of the Cybermen. That's
not even your 2-minute review.
That's not even my 2-minute review because it was not new. It was a couple years ago. My something new 2-minute review, before I listened to Return of the Cybermen, I listened to Lost Stories Daleks Genesis of Terror. It's enjoyable. It's good. It's just very short. And the reason it's very short is it's only episode 1. They only took the original treatment and script that Terry Nation wrote up for episode 1 of Genesis of the Daleks, which is what he was presenting to say, okay, here's what the story could be. And it's not that drastically different from my memory. The Doctor is a little different because he was written more in line with John Pertwee. But how they kind of get into the situation and how he gets convinced to go to Skaro is a little different, and they add some nice little Big Finish, forward-looking retroactive things to it. But it's an interesting listen, but it wasn't enough of a departure from the original, from the TV story, that I felt like it was wholly warranted. Glenn, you might get more out of it than I did, just because it's Daleks, and it has been a couple years since I've watched Genesis of the Daleks. More interesting was probably the hour-long interview with Philip Hinchcliffe in the bonus features. And that was going back and him looking at a whole bunch of stuff and how he went about, how he approached, his time on the show.
Well, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, that if nothing else, listening to that is totally worth it. And because it's only they do their Big Finish thing for the first episode, and then the rest they still give you the other 5 parts, but it's just somebody narrating the adventure from that point forward, which is literally beat for beat the exact same of what the actual TV story was.
Right.
Really? Had I known all of that going in, I might have liked it maybe more, but going in expecting Lost Story, Daleks Genesis of Terror, the original Genesis of the Daleks, I was disappointed.
All right, well, thanks for that. We appreciate the review.
You are invited on an adventure across all of time and space, in a completely random order. It's the Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. Jump in the TARDIS with your hosts,
Eric Gulbranson,
Asad Kheshki,
and
Matthew Kressel.
Explore Doctor Who TV stories, audio adventures, and books, both novels and non-fiction. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast. It's the entire Whoniverse on shuffle. The Police Box in the Junkyard podcast is a member of the Direction Point Network and is available about once a month wherever you find your podcasts. You are listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Well, some exciting news. Russell T. Davies has announced that production has wrapped on season 14, so which is the first season with Ncuti Gatwa.
I don't know about you guys.
Now it's on to post-production.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but it really feels like it zipped along because it just seems like just a few weeks back when we were getting first glimpses of the Doctor's outfit and Ruby's outfit and the casting announcements and things like that. But I wonder if maybe more of that, well, I suppose that's probably been about what May is when all that started falling out. So I suppose maybe it's been longer than I think. And I guess if you're working on a week-to-week schedule, that makes sense, especially since I think they're only doing 8 episodes for the seasons. But that,
well, now with
as
seems... much post-production as there is on the show
true.
And all the visual effects, they
that's
need
true.
more of a lead time.
But it just seems like a really quick turnaround for just even, a principal production.
It makes me wonder if we're going to get it early next year as opposed to later next year.
Well, that'd be great. We've got such dry spells between series now. It's almost excruciating sometimes.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
Right. Well, and also maybe that's part of their deal with Disney Plus too, is so that they have the turnaround's a little quicker, so they don't have as many gaps in it as well. Who knows? I'm excited. To see what Ncuti does with it.
This article also talks about the promotional stuff they did for the Barbie movie in the UK. Did you guys see that? With the TARDIS?
With the TARDIS being pink.
Yeah, that was nice.
I like
how the Doctor Who official Instagram even posted a video of Happiness Patrol.
Yeah. I like it says the TARDIS runs on pure Kinergy.
Mm-hmm. I first saw a picture of it. I was like, why is there a pink TARDIS out there? And I had to go and look up. Is it the anniversary of Happiness Patrol? Is that what? No, just Barbie.
No, everybody's getting in on the pink.
I
also saw the pink picture of the TARDIS and also went Happiness Patrol promotion.
Yeah.
Really?
Or sequel? Are they announcing a Happiness Patrol sequel in the next season?
I mean, seems like an odd flex, but okay. Yeah, I can get behind that. And then, I don't know, a couple days later, I heard something about Barbie promotions were everywhere. And I went, oh, I'll bet that's what it was. But I never actually went back and looked because you guys know me. I like to be surprised with things. So
Right.
And of course, Ncuti is in the Barbie movie.
Yes.
So this is also true.
I also had forgotten that part.
I had actually forgotten that until over the weekend. We were talking about how many people were in this film, and I was like, oh, yeah, and I knew Ncuti was in it because I remember several months back hearing that. But then suddenly it reminded me of that, and then they started naming off like 2 or 3 people. I was like, well, I had no idea they were even in it, so a lot of big names in it. What's next?
Oh, Target has announced novelizations for the 2023 specials, The Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder, and The Giggle.
Yay!
Yeah.
I haven't even gotten around to reading the novelizations for all the other new stuff that they've done. I think the only one that I've read of the new stuff so far is Twice Upon a Time, which I think I read a few Christmases ago.
This is the 50th year Target has been publishing Doctor Who books.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. So it's not only the 60th anniversary, it's, an anniversary for Target.
That's true. Of course, I think this is something that wasn't quite a surprise when they announced it because they have been novelizing the new ones under the Target imprint. So these were just, I think maybe what was surprising about it was them announcing it so soon. But
yeah, they haven't, while they've been doing new series novelizations, they haven't been that close on the heels of actual air date.
Because
these is really cool that they're actually going to start doing that.
Right. These come out in January of next year too. So
yeah. So all three will have aired and will probably be on DVD by the time they get novelizations.
Right.
It'd be kind of fun if they could get them novelized and released before, they officially hit, Disney Plus or at least purchase for on DVD. That'd be kind of fun.
Well, you don't think we're getting day and date for Disney Plus?
I don't know.
I think we will.
I think we will.
Too. At least getting it before DVD.
DVD,
cool.
Yeah.
It'd be almost like the good old days.
That's right. And our next bit of news?
Well, speaking of DVDs, Season 20, or Peter Davison Season 2, is getting a Blu-ray release.
Yay! Did you guys watch the trailer for this?
I did not get a chance.
You didn't?
I watched most of the trailer for this and then got called
I tried
away.
to load it and watch it, and the children were not cooperating, and then I forgot to go back and watch it.
Yeah, Janet Fielding and Nissa. Why does this actress, Sarah Sutton, why does that actress's name always escape me every time? Reuniting as Tegan and Nissa. In a way, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody that hasn't seen it but it does. I will spoil that it has kind of a kin to Flair, so or at least the snake element to it. But I thought it was a really neat and kind of an unusual way. The way that they've done these in the past have always been these kind of nostalgic, and this still has airs of this, but sort of that nostalgic. Fun reunion type, with the Doctor or with us as viewers with the companions, sometimes when they're just the only one that's featured. And this one kind of does it in a little different way, which in the spirit of Snake Dance and Kinda, really kind of, it makes sense the way they did it. And I thought it was really cool and very clever the way they've done the trailer. But
what do you guys think of another edition, a 40th anniversary edition of the Five Doctors?
Well, I think that's all right because, we had the.
It still have the original edition.
We had the special edition.
Are they going to fix the effects?
We had the original. Then we had the special edition, and then we had the 25th anniversary edition. Was that or 30th anniversary
25th.
edition?
25th. I think it was 25th.
Okay, 25th anniversary edition. So are they going to fix the effects? You mean fix the ones that they ruined, or
yeah?
No, they're just updating those ruined effects.
Oh, they're updating the ruined ones.
Updated special effects, Dolby Atmos and surround sound, plus an all new exclusive commentary.
But updating the special effects.
If the time scoop is not a flat, black triangle, I'm not interested.
I think updating the special effects could be, you can still see the originals, but you can't on the discs that we have as well already. But I think if they update the original effect, but still use the spirit of the black triangle, I think maybe they could tweak that and make it look cooler, but still have kind of that same, and keep faithful to that look or that design.
This is true.
The little swirly vortex thing, I have to agree. It's kind of
it's just
nice try, just not there.
Yeah.
Some of these bonus features look fantastic. Like, look who's driving. Join Peter Davison, Janet Fielding, and Sarah Sutton on a hilarious European road trip. I'm down.
Listen to Davison and Fielding fight the whole time. And Sarah Sutton sat in the back seat uncomfortable.
Yep.
I'm down for it. I'm down for it.
And something called Once Upon a Time Lord, a rare U.S. documentary from the 1980s.
Yeah, I saw that. That was kind of interesting. That's something that I think I've heard about, but I had never seen any clips or anything from it. So that would be cool. And then finally,
a Time Lord. I'll have to look that up. That sounds familiar.
And then finally,
BBC and Doctor Who revealed the design of the 14th Doctor's sonic screwdriver.
What do you guys
and
think?
had it available for purchase as a toy at San Diego Comic-Con,
What do you guys think?
as well as having a replica.
I kind of like that it invokes a lot of the style and design of all of the screwdrivers in New Who. I like that it has a little bit of Davison, a little bit of Capaldi, has a little bit of Tennant, it has a little bit of Smith, it has a little bit of, well, yeah, Eccleston's obviously was the same as Tennant's, but I like how it kind of has those, but then it has its own unique style as well. I really like the cracked texture on the handle. I think that's kind of neat. And I didn't know this, but the guy that designed this, he's a huge fan. It was a total honor for him to do it. And I read today that on the little part that flicks the screwdriver on, in Gallifreyan there is his son's name.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty neat little piece. But yeah, I guess this guy was enamored, and they allowed him to be the one to present it to Tennant on the day of shooting. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Oh,
too.
that's cool.
Yeah.
It's very much 10 and 11's baby.
Yeah, and rightfully so, since it's Tennant returning to the role.
Yeah,
I think, so.
yeah. And looking at it closer, I can see what you're talking about for Capaldi's.
I think it's more in the tip.
Second one.
Yeah.
The blue little crystal almost thing that he had in his.
I think it's
one that he barely got to use.
Right. I think from there up, I think is kind of reminds me of Capaldi's.
Yeah.
Obviously not the Sonic shades.
Yeah, right.
I like the shades.
Yeah.
Kind of miss the shades.
I'm kind of surprised that they're giving. I know, they destroyed the Sonic in the comic, but I'm kind of surprised they're giving the 14th Doctor his own screwdriver for 3 stories. Unless it's going to be inherited by the 15th, and the 15th isn't going to get his own design. And
I don't see that.
That's
happening.
the case. I feel like they should have almost held it back, avoided Sonic usage in the 3 specials, and unveiled it as truly as the 15th Doctor's.
I can see that point, but I also concede the fact that it's the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who, and the Sonic's been there for the majority of that. So I think it was fitting that it's there. Although,
they do need to have merchandise to market.
Well, yeah, right.
Ding.
More than anything else.
And now we come to the meat of the matter.
They got to have toys to sell.
We are going on a journey, a very long journey, through the world of the Target novelizations in publication order. Every week, we are looking at a new book, talking about Terrence Dicks, Malcolm Hulke, and all our Doctor Who novelization friends. Whatever you do, keep turning the pages. This is Jason Miller of the Doctor Who Literature Podcast, a member of the Direction Point Podcast Network, and you are listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
All right, well, let's move on to our reviews. Then, just as a little primer here, we want to remind people that we are doing the Toymaker Adversary Archive Part 1, and the reason we're doing that is because it is heavily speculated by much of fandom that Neil Patrick Harris will be embodying the role of the Toymaker in one of the upcoming specials. And so we kind of felt like, well, that could be the case, and if it is, it's very timely that we do our Adversary Archive, which we haven't done one of these for a long time, but obviously before Beep the Meep, which we also were doing in conjunction with this 60th. But we hadn't done our Adversary Archives for a long time, so we're getting back into those for the 60th. And Sean brought up last week, I think it was, or last episode when we were talking about the schedule, as to why I just put Toymaker and not Celestial Toymaker. And I think I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because I was a little surprised that they both leaned into that in Nightmare Fair. Not surprised, I suppose I should say, because Nightmare Fair was slated to be a 6th Doctor story back in the 80s. But also that they, on the Lost Stories version of it, they don't say it as much, and they do refer to him as the Toymaker. In the novel, he's referred to as a Mandarin. But the reason I went to that is because there are still those connotations that I think that they're trying to step away from, because Celestial, and he is dressed as a Mandarin, Celestial also is a word for what is it, Far Eastern or Eastern Asia, or I should say just Asian. Yeah, and so I
did not know that either.
Yeah, not only is it like galactic, but it's also used in reference to Asia. I think particularly China back in the day, or Eastern origin. And so, while I don't think that the word itself is problematic, what was problematic was the fact that it was a white English actor playing the role dressed as a Mandarin. So I think that they've sort of learned their lessons over the years, and I think that's why they've sort of distanced themselves from using Celestial Toymaker. We do have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is in the Nightmare Fair. He is addressed as the Mandarin, and he is still dressed as a Mandarin. So there is that. We did manage, I believe all of us got a chance to read The Nightmare Fair, which was the novelization by Graham Williams that was a part of the Lost Stories collection that Target published back in 1989. And then the one more importantly, the reason why we did that is because we reviewed The Nightmare Fair, the Lost Stories 1.1, which was the very first Lost Story that Big Finish did back in 2009. And the reason I'm lumping these together is because I think we'll probably end up comparing them as we talk about it. So, Keith, do you have a synopsis for either or both?
I do. I'm going to go with the Big Finish one because it's shorter.
Good.
The TARDIS has been drawn to Blackpool in the year 1986, where the Doctor intends to investigate a dangerous space-time vortex, while enjoying some local attractions along the way. But an old enemy is watching from his base deep within the amusement park, a timeless being who craves revenge. The celestial Toymaker has returned, the game is on, and should he lose, the Doctor will pay the ultimate forfeit.
Bum, bum, bum.
Why don't you start?
The open of this is just a sheer delight. I kind of feel like I would very much like the Sixth Doctor and Perry to go on vacation and ride the rides and eat the cotton candy and not get into an adventure. I had so much fun just listening to them banter and, scream with delight at roller coasters and listen to the Sixth Doctor talk with disdain about something that was initially his idea. It just, Perry rolling her eyes, like even it's an audio, but you totally get that was it. And so all of that I thought was great. And then the Toymaker shows up and it just kind of, I hate to say this, but it just kind of becomes another poorly written Sixth Doctor TV episode where nothing is really resolved by the end of it.
Ding, 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 ding. You hit the nail on the head. You get a prize. Pick from these stuffed animals I have mounted on the wall here.
I want the panda.
Here's the panda, sir.
The panda in the chair. That's the one I want.
My bigger problem with it is how, the Doctor and Perry gets. It's okay that the Doctor and Perry get separated, but then the Doctor gets thrown in jail, and nothing happens for the longest time. Just absolutely nothing. And he's doing his techno wizardry in the background to do his thing to take down the Toymaker. But I'm here for the Sixth Doctor and the Toymaker to go toe to toe with their fantastic voices and their soliloquies that they do, and they barely get to do it. Mm-hmm. They barely get to go tete-a-tete. And
even in the book,
yeah, the novelization I feel does a little better job than the audio does. The audio feels like he's in that prison cell forever.
Yeah.
And nothing happens. And then even when he gets out, it feels like everyone else is down there forever doing nothing.
not only is it that he's in the cell forever with nothing happening, he's in the cell, and the reason that nothing is happening is because the Toymaker is getting ready for his great work. And there's this massive implication of, we've got these potentially evil toys, this video game that does who only knows what to the designer, and we've got licensing, and we're going to up the whole factories going to California to start mass producing and churn all this stuff out. And none of that is elaborated on.
Nope.
All of it is dropped.
Yep.
And it's like, well, why did we spend so much time on it if you weren't going to do anything with it?
Yeah. It really feels like, and here's the thing that I think that frustrates me is because both the book and the short story, although the short story I think could have the audio could have obviously left out that element of it with the video game that's going out to be, especially if you're not going to address it. But I think maybe they were also trying to stay as true as they could to the script. But I think the problem that I have with it is it really does, the book especially feels like it's been written from a Sixth Doctor script that would have been produced in the 1980s. It really feels like one of these, what were they doing, 2 or 3 parts at this time? It was 3 parts?
It was only a 2-part.
Yeah, the audio was, but they were doing 3 at this time? Or were they doing 245s? They were doing 245s.
They were doing 245s.
So it's still the equivalent.
So it feels like they probably would have done a day of shooting outside at Blackpool, and that would have been the first, maybe third, maybe half of the first story, where we had all that exposition of them doing, which I agree with Sean. I just want to see that. I would love just to have Perry and the Doctor exploring Blackpool Carnival or amusement park the whole time, and don't even need to.
Well, and even the mystery building up to, I mean, we knew it was the Toymaker behind the scenes going into it, but had I not known the mystery building up to who's behind this and then the ultimate reveal would have been awesome.
Well, I don't know that
I enjoyed this entire story up until they get in jail.
That's just it, though. I don't know that they would have done it that way because unless they just shot the Toymaker's mouth, and it's my understanding that Michael Goff was going to come back and play the Toymaker if they had shot this in the 80s. When they went to do the audio story, it's my understanding that he was like in his 90s by that time and had turned them down, or they didn't even approach him because they weren't sure that he would even do it because of his advanced age. But so they would have even had him. And I think that if you had did something where when he's talking, if you didn't quite pull out yet and reveal who it was, maybe just shots of his mouth, shots of his hands, it could have been very effective. But I think the clunky way that they were shooting these at the time, they'd have just shown us to him the first time he started speaking. So the reveal would have come so early that would have even been spoiled. And so I don't think, because it, as you guys say, when you get to the jail and nothing happens, and Perry and the kid are walking through the ride trying to find their way out, and they have this really great little group of, I assumed they were animatronic troll things, or the miners that kind of sort of come to life, which is very much in line with the Toymaker's MO. But then I never really felt that the two were ever put in any real danger. Excuse me. And I think that they underutilized these little mechanical miners, or whatever they were. I think they were supposed to be quasi-mechanical, quasi-alive. They underused those, and so there's not enough of that. And then, it really feels like they probably planned to shoot, the rest of the 2 or 3 quarters of this in a studio, and so that's why it's written this way. But then when Graham Williams gets a hold of the novelization, because they didn't do my thing on TV, he almost like he adapts the TV script as a novel when he had free reign to kind of expand on some things and broaden it out a little bit more and make it a little more exciting. I'm sure he was confined to his 180 pages that Target would have given him, but I think he could have probably pulled a Terrence Dix, and Dix was pretty much guilty of just straight copying. But who was the one that we read that did the who was the one that we were impressed that they kind of deviated from the script? It was the one with the mask. No, not the massacre. The one where the Trojan horse story. We were kind of impressed that they kind of deviated a little bit from the story and kind of embellished some things. I think he could have done this, especially since nobody had seen this. It's not like you're going to adapt something that people saw and they went, oh, you kind of went too far. This is one where it's his story. He could embellish it a little more, but he doesn't do that. And I think that's the disappointment, is that reading it, it's like, okay, this totally would have been one of those mediocre Sixth Doctor stories from the 80s.
And obviously, what elevates it is the performances. Colin Baker is, as usual, fantastic with what he's given. I thought Nicole Bryant did a great job kind of stepping back into a different Perry than what we have gotten in Big Finish, because they've really advanced her character so much in the intervening years that she's not quite the damsel in distress that she was written to be on television. And yet, because this is a TV script, we very much get TV Perry, where she's not given a whole lot to do, and she is separated from the Doctor, and then immediately, kind of runs afoul of things. But yet, she still manages to tweak things a little bit, so it's not a complete waste of the character.
Yeah, and I was going to say, because I appreciate why they did it, because of they were trying the authenticity of a lost story from that era. But I agree with you. I think that she steps that back to that Perry, but she also gives it just a little bit more so that it's different. So yeah, I appreciated that.
And I was very shocked to find out that this wasn't Michael Goff.
Oh, is that right? I think he sounds very much different than Michael Goff.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe it's because I've always, I really enjoy Michael Goff, but I've always known Michael Goff as old Michael Goff. I kind of came to him Batman. As, he's Alfred the Butler from Batman. He was in Sleepy Hollow. He's done all these Tim Burton things. And then to come back and see him in this younger role in Doctor Who is like, oh, wow. So for me, it's always kind of been the reverse. So when I heard this guy, I heard Alfred the Butler and just kind of fell back into it. That, that's totally him. But it wasn't.
So I felt he almost had a deeper gravelly voice, and I didn't, more so than Michael Goff did. So that's what bothered me a little bit about it. Was now, that being said, if you're going to bring somebody in that, and I think David Bale does a fantastic job. I think his performance is great. Don't think he had a lot to work with, but I think for what he did, he came across quite menacing. Maybe not as menacing or deadly as he could have been, but he did come across, he did deliver. And so I appreciated him in this, but it just kind of took me out of it thinking that's not Michael Goff. I can't hear it. So I think that what sort of will fix it is the fact that if Neil Patrick Harris is the Toymaker and is just this same incarnation but with a different face, then that tells me that the Toymaker can take on different appearances as well, and then I'm okay with that. But and even personalities and voice and things like that, like the Doctors do.
Now, and maybe this is something else that we'll kind of get into a little bit further on, but doing an Adversary Archive on the Celestial Toymaker, am I crazy, or did we just speculate it, or has it been acknowledged and confirmed somewhere that the Toymaker is an Eternal?
So it has been postulated by fandom, I believe. I don't think it's ever been official. I think that based on things that have been said and hints and things like that, yes, they've implied that. However, this story steps back on that and almost makes him his own being himself. Oh, you know why we thought that? Because in that that annual from the year they did, or the year prior that they did Time Lord Victorious, I think he is included when they're talking about the Ancient Ones. I think they lumped him in with the Eternals in that one. So I guess technically it has been official, but this sort of steps it back and makes it almost feel like he's an entity on his own from a different dimension or a different universe even.
That's one of the things I did appreciate about this was the exploration, even though the Doctor kind of jumps to conclusions on his own without any kind of confirmation. But the exploration of the Toymaker's backstory, I thought was an interesting part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a cool backstory, and I don't know, I suppose my headcanon has maybe room for both, that shades of them are true, because I really do kind of like the idea. And I could have sworn it was further back than that, like when we actually reviewed Enlightenment. Or maybe it was when we reviewed the Toymaker.
I don't think I knew of the Toymaker. I think I knew of the Toymaker, but we hadn't gotten to it by the time we did Enlightenment.
Sean, so maybe I reversed that when we did the Celestial Toymaker.
Sean, when we talked about when we watched the recon for Celestial Toymaker, we talked about that, how that had become how it had become a fandom.
That must be what I'm thinking of then, because I really thought that had been all but confirmed. But I'm old, I forget things. So I kind of like where they went and where they took it, and it certainly did explain things as far as his power set, being able to craft things that in thin air and just focus his attention on it. And so the fact that he's from a universe where the laws of physics are different, so therefore the laws of physics of our universe don't apply to him. Okay, yeah, I can get behind that. It's a kind of a simplistic answer, but if you're gonna give me an answer, sure, I'll take that one. Why not?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I liked also the fact that in that backstory, he still wasn't sure. So it leaves it open for all these different, one person thinks this and another person thinks this, and it makes it so that every time we get a different answer, it still can work.
Yeah. I just wish there had been more to it. Again, it was like, this is a cool setup, but the execution left something to be desired.
I've pulled that annual I was talking about, and it does not equate the Toymaker in that little section that it talks about the Eternals. So that was not, at least there they don't canonize it.
According to the TARDIS Wiki, he has also been called the Crystal Guardian.
Oh, right. He's been equated to the Black Guardians and the White Guardian as well. Yeah, he's been considered a Guardian as well.
Which I think we assumed that the Guardians were also Eternals of some sort.
I think you're right.
So, yeah.
I suppose one of these days we'll have to get Glenn to put together the official Traveling the Vortex infographic of
the Eternals.
Who's who amongst the Celestials and the Eternals, and are they in fact the same, or does one outrank another?
Yeah, right.
You'll get on that for our patrons, won't you, Glenn?
Absolutely. I'm on it now.
Well, speaking of comics, do we want to move on and talk a little bit about the short?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's start.
Games?
Let's start there with the short. Yeah.
The synopsis is almost as long as the story.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't think we need to do a synopsis.
I enjoyed this. I thought it was really cool.
It sort of puts the Toymaker in a bit of a even keel with somebody. I mean, even more so than the Doctor. Although the Doctor, twice now has defeated the Toymaker in a way. But this really, it's like the Toymaker meeting his match and putting himself in a stalemate, which I thought was kind of clever.
Yeah, the fact that the Toymaker doesn't win and then is like, okay, I'm not going to try again. Goodbye.
Yep.
It's kind of a cool idea.
He finds he doesn't need to win. He just satisfies that curiosity as to if it could be done.
Well, and even the Toymaker being such a game master, that as he starts off and he's very cocky and very confident and I can do this. and then realizes, I think pretty quickly, that nope, I am outclassed.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the fact that he is such a gamester that while the previous bits of him and his game playing, he kind of seems like the type who would kick over the board and throw a fit. But instead, he starts playing into a stalemate. And it's done both to save face, but also because he is outclassed.
He doesn't want to lose, but he is outclassed.
So he's not going to own up to the losing part of it,
Right.
but he's not above throwing a game.
Right.
If he can still get some sort of advantage out of it. And I thought that was very telling of him.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's really just, perfectly lines up with his MO that, 'cause it's not like he's never cheated somebody in a game before.
Right.
But just in this particular instance, the fact that this is how he chose to do it. I mean, he did it legally.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't cheat.
Nope.
He didn't, throw the game per se. It just, it was a draw. Okay, well, thanks.
Right.
And away we go. And that to me, I just thought it was very very cool. I liked that element being revealed.
It's a little surprising that he's willing to accept the draw and that it's a stalemate. But I think, that because he was on the verge of losing, had he been on the verge of winning and it turning into a stalemate, I think he would have thrown over the board.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Because he was so close to losing, it makes me okay that he is willing to accept the stalemate.
Well, and I think, and him, as Sean pointed out, learning early enough on that he may have met his match, and so then he's just at this point trying to keep his head above water and realizing that, okay, this is the way out of this, or this is the way to at least conclude this with and save face a little bit. So
yeah, absolutely. Had he gone in and just been smacked around up one side and down the other, he totally would have thrown a fit and accused the other guy of cheating or something. But it was just fun to have him on the back foot for a change and not have it not be the doctor that was the reason for it.
Yep,
for sure.
Anybody looking for this one? If you can get a hold of Doctor Who Magazine 192, published in October, released in October of 1992. That's where you can find this short story by Warwick Gray. Well, should we move on to the comic now, which is called The Greatest Gamble? This is or also the Toymaker comes to America.
Setting up shop before the Nightmare Fair.
Right.
Which I didn't realize until looking at this. It's written by John Peel.
Oh, it is. I didn't realize that either. I'll be darned. Well,
this is more in line of what I expect from a Toymaker
yeah,
story.
And you know what? Now that you say that, it really kind of almost feels like a John Peel story, and that's not a detriment to it, but John Peel has a idea of how Doctor Who works and how Doctor Who characters work, and I don't want to make it sound like his stories are cookie cutter or formulaic, but when you read his stories, you really kind of feel like you're reading a Doctor Who or you're reading something from that universe. And so it makes sense why this feels so much that way is because Peel wrote it. So, I'll be darned.
Yeah, there's definitely, that's not, I don't look at that as a slight at all. There's definitely a vibe to a particular style that Doctor Who has. And so when you get an author that gets it and you're in the vibe, it's like, okay, yeah. And this was just another fun story. And I agree with Keith. It very much is like, is it sad that both little kind of, I don't want to say throwaway, but minor footnote stories dealing with the Toymaker both felt maybe better put together and thought out than the lost story that would have been an actual.
Yes.
Is that weird?
No, it's not weird. I think both of these authors get more of the spirit of what the Toymaker was in the Celestial Toymaker, and I think they both do it well. So yeah, no, I agree. I completely see what you mean.
I mean, just it almost feels
Yeah.
like I'm sorry, who wrote the Nightmare Fair?
Warwick. I just had it pulled up here. Warwick Gray.
Who wrote the TV the script?
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's not Malcolm?
No, I don't think it's. We'll see.
Sorry,
Nightmare
I
Fair was
thought-
Graham Williams, but the
Graham
original,
Williams.
but the original Celestial Toymaker or this one.
Yeah, no, this one.
Okay,
Graham
yeah. So
Williams.
Graham
I
Williams.
just couldn't
Yeah.
think.
Nightmare Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nightmare Fair.
Okay, so I this is going to sound terribly disparaging, and I don't mean to, but the way Nightmare Fair reads, it almost comes across as a journeyman writer assigned to write Doctor Who and given the Celestial Toymaker and said, "Here, go do something with this," and just was like, "Eh." It just didn't quite have the same passion for it as they should.
Mhm.
Does that make sense? It just I can only imagine that being a Who writer and getting the chance to Glenn, we want you to write a Dalek episode. There should be a level of joy in the writing, and there isn't in this. It's like, Glenn, go write a Slitheen episode.
Oh,
That's
Lord.
kind of the equivalent of what this feels like. It just the characters just do not come across with any level of joy to them.
Mhm.
Once at least on the Toymaker side, and that to me is just surprising that these kind of little offshoot, quote unquote, non-canon stories are way better.
Well, what do we think of the Greatest Gamble? I mean, I love the idea of the fact that the Toymaker comes along to play this game, and this guy who's supposed to be this really good gambler ends up turning to cheating, and so the Toymaker's onto him, and so the Toymaker decides, okay, well, the Toymaker, I think, for the most part, is honorable as far as his games go. In the last story that we just reviewed, he has to sort of do the he has to work into the stalemate, but it's still on the up and up. And this one is where he has to turn to cheating, but he justifies it because it's like fighting fire with fire. There was no way that he could win based on a cheat. So then the rules of the game have changed, and cheating is now allowed. So that allows him to get the upper hand at the end of this.
Right.
And then making was it Gaylord was the name of the gambler, making him a toy in his collection. So it's kind of a neat way to end it, showing us also all of the other different losers that had become toys as well.
It's nice also to see how the Toymaker goes around collecting his toys. It's a nice little quick aside from a standard story.
It does turn the tables too. Both this and the last one turns the tables on who the antagonist and who the protagonist is in the story. And I will not use the word hero or villain, but certainly the protagonist and antagonist in these stories is turned on its head by featuring the Toymaker without the Doctor and having another adversary who's just as rotten in both cases. And
enjoyable.
If you wanted to run this one down, this is even older. This was in Doctor Who magazine 56 in September of 1981. It was reprinted in Marvel's Doctor Who comics as a standalone story. And I believe that issue was, I had it here and now I can't find it. Oh, issue 20. So back in 1984 when they reprinted these in Marvel Comics. So there you go. That is our first part of our Adversary Archive on the Toymaker. We'll get into this. We won't get into the schedule because we're only going to talk so much about the schedule this week. But later on down the road, and then in the coming months, we do plan to do another Toymaker Adversary Archive ahead of presumably the Toymaker's appearance in one of the Doctor Who specials.
Hello, fellow time travelers, and welcome to the Doctor Who Target Book Club podcast, the only podcast to discuss, in story order, all the Doctor Who novelizations. My name is Tony Whitt, and every 2 weeks or so, I'm joined by a 2 to 3 person discussion panel, including our so-called expert who's been a Who fan since 1979. That would be me. We also get the views of intermediate, casual, and novice fans who either have never seen the show or who have never read these books until these podcasts, including
Dalton Hughes
and
Alison Fitz-Seyfried.
You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you find good podcasts, or even ones like ours. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex, a Direction Point podcast.
Hi, I'm Rupert Booth.
I am known as Paul Ferry.
And my name is Barry Williams.
Together, we host Time Ram.
Time Ram's a cruel mistress.
It's a random number generator.
That also.
We roll a number from 1 to 30, and that's our doctor. Then 1 to 300 for the story, and then we ram them together.
Even if it doesn't make sense.
Cruel, I tell you.
Time Ram. Putting the wrong doctors in the wrong stories, so you don't have to.
You're listening to Traveling the Vortex.
Sean, what do you got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up next, we do some more tie-ins for the big Finnish 60th anniversary. No, that's wrong. Let me back up. We do another Big Finish 60th anniversary tie-in with Once and Future, A Genius for War, which is part 3 of their contributions to the 60th anniversary. And then we return also to Doomsday. We get 2 more issues of Titan Comics covering hours 6, 7, 8, and 9. And so we will be doing all that on the next one. And then we return to our exploration of Season 6B, Part 4, with a Big Finish audio drama, Doctor Who, The Second Doctor Adventures, James Robert McCrimmon. Of course, starring the absolutely wonderful Fraser Hines.
Yeah, and so presumably this will be when for our Season 6B, this will be when the Doctor is reunited with Jamie after departing in the War Games. So that'll be interesting.
And I can't wait because... You say Second Doctor, I say Jamie.
Yep.
That's true. That's true. That's going to be a lot of fun to listen to.
There are no TP.
All right. Well, you, of course, can find us at travelingthevortex.com. If you get any value out of this podcast, please consider putting some value back into it. You can do that by clicking on our Patreon link and support us. Even as little as $1 will get you all of the fun things that we're doing up there. Sean just hosted another trivia quiz for us. So we've done 6 of those so far, and number 6 is up there on the feeds. So be sure, Patreon listeners, to listen to that and let us know how you did on the trivia quiz. And then, of course, if you want to join, like I said, just as little as $1 in order to unlock the access to those fun things we're doing. Sean's got another Star Trek coming up that he's going to do. It's one of his side trip projects that he's been embarking on, reviewing the various seasons of Star Trek through the years. And then I do have some more comic adventures that I've been going through with the First Doctor that will be going up there soon as well. And I think Keith is on deck for quiz number 7. So look for those in the future. Yep. Also consider giving us a 5-star review wherever you subscribe to the podcast. That goes a long ways to bumping us up on a lot of these podcast aggregators, gets our name out there, gets people familiar with us and more people listening. So if you can help us out there, we appreciate it. And of course, you can join on the conversations on our listeners forum on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter, and we are on TikTok. Just search Traveling the Vortex on all of those avenues. Anything else we need to touch on in this episode? If not, until next time, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you. Thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.
Direction point! Direction point!
A Doctor Who podcast network.